Well, I want to thank ASEE for inviting Ivy Tech Community College to present to the Engineering Dean's Council discussing the success of engineering transfer students and how we can grow this pipeline to be ever larger and more diverse. I'm Sue Ellspermann, president of Ivy Tech Community College and a PhD in engineering. Dr. David Eli, department chair for School of Advanced Manufacturing, Engineering and Applied Sciences, and Burl Turnbow, AVP of Curriculum for Ivy Tech Community College. I have also chaired ASEE's Leadership Roundtable, where we bring presidents, CEOs, and subject matter experts together to discuss implications to engineering education. Amidst the pandemic and racial injustice we have experienced, this is a time for us to rethink the transfer pipeline in engineering, a career that holds tremendous opportunity, impact, social mobility, and wealth creation. Next slide. So, who's Ivy Tech? Ivy Tech is Indiana's community college. We are the nation's largest singly accredited community college. We are Indiana's sole community college with 19 campuses, more than 160,000 students. We are also the most inclusive higher education institution in our state, serving the most diverse student population. In fact, more than half of all of the Black and African American college students from Indiana will attend Ivy Tech. And Indiana has a rich higher education landscape, including Purdue, Indiana University, Notre Dame, Rose-Hulman, among many others. Indiana is the nation's most manufacturing intensive state. Therefore, our need for engineers is significant. Indianapolis is also one of the fastest growing tech cities in the country. That said, we still export a significant number of engineers outside of Indiana, leaving our own smaller companies challenged to hire engineering talent. Ivy Tech is comprehensive on both our transfer pathways and workforce pathways. We are agnostic to the type of credential, though we believe strongly in stackability. We offer certificates, technical certificates, industry certifications, associate degrees, and applied associate degrees. Indiana has TSAPs, that is a transfer statewide articulation pathways, which all of our state schools are required to accept by state law. We also have the Indiana College Core, the freshman year, or those 30 credits that are required to be accepted, again, by law, by all four-year state institutions. You would or you would not be surprised to know that these are not always accepted. Throughout this presentation, we hope to talk about both the challenges and the opportunities to better serve community college transfer students and their successful completion as engineers. And now I'll turn it over to Verl.
Thank you, Sue. As Sue mentioned, I'm a curriculum AVP here at Ivy Tech. I work statewide, and I work with the engineering group. I work in the School of Advanced Manufacturing, Engineering, and Applied Science. I also work in IT. I've been working with the engineering group as long as it's been around here at Ivy Tech. And we have adopted the ANSAC criterion from ABET as our program outcomes for the engineering program. And so we believe highly in these outcomes and in these criterion. And so 5 major ones, that is to identify, formulate, and solve broadly defined technical problems, utilization of mathematics and science as the key foundational points that are relevant to the discipline. Students must be able to conduct experiments and analyze and define and interpret data off of those experiments and or predetermined labs. They have to be able to function on teams. We just had a recent curriculum committee meeting last week, and we're actually taking that a little bit farther. We would actually say here at Ivy Tech, we want them to be able to function on diverse teams. And we're actually talking about what that means to our students and what that means to our faculty in terms of that functioning piece in diverse teams. We want them to understand their professional and their ethical responsibilities in the engineering field. We feel that's important for them to be able to question and identify that within themselves and within their organizations. And then absolutely the last thing, we want them to be able to communicate effectively. We want them to have very good oral and written communication skills, but we want them to be able to present their ideas in a functional format as they move into their careers. Our engineering program operates at the Associate of Science level. We actually have 2 degrees that operate at the Associate of Science level. We then have a technical certificate that is 31 credit hours. And we also have a certificate program, as Sue mentioned. So we run the gambit where we would typically associate the Associate of Science program with a transfer program. At Ivy Tech, we would associate technical certificates and certificates with workforce-oriented programs. In this particular case, we did that so that we have stackability. She mentioned the transfer as a junior program. You'll hear us use a number of acronyms, but and we also have a core of 30 credit hours that we must legislatively embed inside of a transfer program. So that's what the STGEC is. Certainly our program is designed to feed students from Ivy Tech, the community college system, into the 4-year partners. And we have many of them here in Indiana, being Purdue, West Lafayette, Purdue partnership campuses around the state, Indiana State, University of Southern Indiana, and there are several other private organizations that we work with too. Really, the first year is concentrating on preparation foundational studies in engineering, which would equate to, if you want to say it this way, freshman engineering at some campuses. And then our second year tracks are meant to put them into an engineering track. Most notable is the mechanical engineering TSAP program that we have, which that is a transfer as a junior program. Public institutions take that 2-year degree holistically and move them into 3rd-year programming at the site locations. The other general engineering program has the ability to actually stack up some choice classes, technical classes, that can move them into various other forms of engineering that are shown here. We are talking about the stackable credentials. And so you hear that term used quite a bit. So our freshman engineering certificate, that is equatable to Purdue West Lafayette's freshman engineering coursework, focuses primarily on mathematics, science track, and then also communication tracks. There may be a general engineering course, such as programming or something of that nature, that students would take. That actually stacks up into the technical certificate, which is half of the initial AS degree. They start to get a little bit more in the engineering flavor in that particular TC. And in some cases, that TC can actually stack from a 1-year degree into a 3-year transfer pathway. We're shown a visual here of basically those degrees in the engineering program. So the 22 credit hour CT flows into the 31 credit hour TC, and then you can break off from that and move into the general, what we consider general engineering, associate of engineering at 60 credits, which is a non-TSAP program categorized with restricted enrollment. And then some students, David teaches this at his area, would be moving into the mechanical engineering concentration, which is set up statewide for the 2-year programs of study. At Ivy Tech, it actually takes 70 credit hours to get to that level of graduation for that. So we just put some of those nomenclature in there again, which was what TSAP means. And basically that is our guaranteed 2-year to 4-year Indiana public institutional transfer mechanism that we have arranged in the engineering side of our programming here at Ivy Tech. In terms of program statistics generally on a statewide nature, our average age for our students is right at 26 years of age. So it's not completely, we do have returning students that come back and take our engineering coursework. We have 42% basically full-time, and then a 57% part-time ratio. So many of our students are full-time students. We would see higher than that in some other areas of part-time students at the community college here in Indiana. Right now, we have 203 students enrolled in the engineering program, generally speaking. And last year, we had 259 credentials that were awarded during that academic year. I'm going to turn it over to Sue again, and she's going to talk a little bit about the market demand analysis piece.
Thanks, Burl. At Ivy Tech, all of our programs are matched to what the actual demand is in Indiana. So we have a website we share here, which is called Hoosiers by the Numbers, but we use MZ, one of the Strata companies, to help us identify where the demand is, to ensure that all the programs we're offering have real demand. You can see that the projected growth for engineering here in Indiana is 7.6%. And then you can see the largest fields of study, including the industrial, mechanical, civil, electrical. You can see also just the highlighted are where we have 2+2 articulations in mechanical and civil. And then as we look at those employers, we build our programs very strongly around the top employers in the state. You can see kind of a top list, kind of a top 10, if you will, of some of the companies that are here in Indiana. We're a strong automotive state, but just strong manufacturing, biosciences, et cetera. Some more tech firms, as I've talked about, coming on that list as well. Next slide. And then as you think about that, we're very proud of those partnerships that we have. We do in Indiana award a lot of engineering credentials a year. That's something we're very proud of across the state. Those articulations are very strong, with, of course, being home to Purdue University, Purdue West Lafayette. You can see civil, EE, ME, but also with, well, you can see some actual slots being reserved for students in some programs with Purdue West Lafayette, which is tremendous. But in addition, we have very strong relations with IUPUI, which is actually a Purdue engineering degree in a number of areas, EE, electrical and computer science, mechanical and biomedical. And then with some of the smaller schools like Indiana State, which is a new engineering program and actually offers guaranteed enrollment. You'll see that we think that is a best practice, but it is ensuring that a student knows they can go from our associate degree right into the engineering program at that next four-year institution. That's important. And then we have some other engineering schools across the state that I've mentioned, several: Trine, USI, U of E, Kettering, Valpo. These are all places that our students might end up, some inside Indiana, Kettering, of course, up in Michigan. And I'll pass it to David now to just share more specifics about both our programs and where we believe the innovations could be. David.
Okay. Thank you, Sue. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about some of the innovations and successes that we've had and what we've built. So as Sue said, we have very robust four-year partnerships with a number of universities. And one really good example that we're quite happy about is the Fort Wayne Higher Educational Consortium. And this actually is a consortium among about a half a dozen or so schools that enable cross-registration. So if a smaller institution is unable to offer a particular course due to lack of enrollment, for example, or if they're only able to offer it once per year and a student needs it on the off year, then that student can attend the other university, cross-register, take that course over there, but pay tuition to their home institution. And as long as they don't do more than one course per semester or 4 courses for their entire tenure in that program, they can do that, and they can share courses back and forth that way, which is very, very beneficial to students. As was also mentioned, we have the transfer as a junior program, also sometimes called TSAP. And this is a competency-based 2+2 articulation agreement that is statewide. And the advantage of it being competency-based is students don't have to course by course match up every single course that they take. It's very common if you look at different institutions that this given set of topics may be covered in one course, but the same set of topics is covered in another course. And so you end up having these mismatches between courses, but by agreeing, everybody coming to the table and agreeing on what the competencies are in order to go into any other university as a junior, that enables us to give that 70 credit pathway that students are able to progress through and then transfer in as a junior, and they can be assured that they have all the content that they need prior to entering prior to matriculating to the four-year institution. Next slide. So other things that we do to encourage the success of our students is to intentionally seek out internship opportunities for engineering students. An example of this is the undergraduate computational education experience with the Network for Computational Nanotechnology, NCN, which is affiliated with Per University West Lafayette. Last summer, I actually had 2 students participate in that. They were selected for 2 different projects. One of the projects I actually was able to pitch to NCN and they accepted that. And then I also served as a faculty champion for that program as well, one of 2. And these opportunities provide really good opportunities for students to get exposed to the research environment at the Purdue campus and other campuses like that, and to determine if that's something that they want to pursue. And it gives them very good exposure to the transfer institutions before they even transfer over. In this particular case, these 2 ladies, Heiji and Anna, were actually featured in a blog post by the Science Gateways Community Institute, SGCI. And both of these students were very, very successful, and both of those students have now transferred successfully to the four-year programs of their choice. Next slide. We also provide reboot options, what we call reboot options. Math, I think it's no secret in pretty much every institution, is the single biggest bottleneck to success in the engineering environment. This is true at Ivy Tech, and this is true in pretty much every institution that I have ever talked with engineering faculty across the country. And it's important, therefore, to provide off-ramps for students to get into other majors that are still going to fulfill workforce needs, and where those students are going to be successful and be able to find really good, fulfilling careers in high wage earning jobs. And so we have off-ramps that enable students to move into engineering technologies. Some students, when they come in, they have a lot of hands-on skills, and they are less interested in the math and the theory behind it, and they don't want to go as deep into that, but they still are very technical people that want to do that sort of work. And this gives students the ability to move into those areas if they find that the theoretical focus of the engineering is not in their best interest. And part of what we do is we utilize some of the higher end courses to do that. So if students go through higher level calculus courses, then that's fine. That all counts towards engineering technology degrees, statics, thermodynamics. Any courses that they may take like that are applicable to the engineering degrees are also applicable to the engineering technology degrees. And so it gives students natural off-ramps to be able to move into those majors if that's what they determine is in their best interest. Next slide. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about program statistics and some of the trends that we see here. So if you look at this plot, this is the number of engineering students as a function of the academic year from for 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. And you'll see immediately that we have a significant drop in enrollment. And the reason for that is we have restricted the engineering major to students that are ready for college algebra and trigonometry due to the math bottleneck that I have alluded to in the previous slide. Many of these students may well be capable of doing the engineering work, but they need some form of remediation because they have not been prepared prior to coming in. And so what we have done is very intentionally restricted the enrollment, but also provided a remediation track for these students so that these students can get the mentoring and the guidance that they need prior to entering into the engineering major. And this is critical because many of these students actually fail out or change majors on their own before they're ever even seen by engineering faculty. Some of these students come in and they don't know what engineering is. And so it's really critical that those students get this mentoring before they declare the major. And while this has resulted in a decline in improvement or a decline in the overall enrollment, it is increasing the rate at which the students in the program are successful. And if you look at the different color bars, you'll also see that we have the percentage of students of color and the percentage of female students that are listed. Unfortunately, doing this has also impacted those metrics as well, slightly negatively. So we are doing a lot of work to focus on those populations so that we can get those numbers back up. And there are a number of things that we're thinking about with respect to working with local high schools and so forth, particularly those high schools that are serving underrepresented minority populations, so that we can have those students better prepared coming in and get them into the correct major sooner and get our enrollment numbers to climb back up. Next slide. So in terms of demographics, our 2021 demographics is 150 students enrolled statewide. 2021 obviously is a little bit of a difficult year from a statistics standpoint because it's such an outlier due to the pandemic. But currently of the 150 students, we have 23 female students, which is 15.3%, which is up and around the national average, but slightly lower. And we have 3 African-American females at 13%, and then 13% also of Hispanic Latina females. And we are, of course, are predominantly male students, like most institutions. And in the engineering, we have 19 African-American males, 15%, 9 Asian males at 7%, again, three Hispanic Latino males at 2%, and 4 multicultural males at 3%. So we do have a lot of diversity, but we're working to improve those diversity numbers as well. We also have a large population of international students as well that also come in and utilize our programs. Next slide. So how might community colleges and four-year institutions work better together? This is a question that we like to ask a lot is how might we do X, Y, or Z, whatever the question may be. And one of the things that we're looking at is how we can improve two-year course transfer. We would really like to improve the transfer of our second-year courses to neighboring institutions. We'd like to streamline some of the courses. We have some courses that transfer, some that don't. There's a bit of a discrepancy between what courses transfer and what courses don't in some instances. And I think that we can, there's a lot of work that we could do there to improve that. Also co-enrollment models. An example of this is Pathway to Purdue with the agricultural department actually. And this is a really nice model where students are actually accepted into both Purdue and Ivy Tech simultaneously, and they actually take courses at both institutions simultaneously. And the transfer rate for programs such as that are upwards of 80%, which is really phenomenal. That's higher than just about any transfer program that I'm aware of, even around the country. We're also looking at the possibility of developing co-op based models that starts at the community college and then continues on at the four-year institutions. We have many students that work and they're unable to go to school full time like a traditional college student and just not work. They have to work because they have to be able to pay rent. That's the nature of the demographics that we serve. And co-op models would be a good way where we can get students who are actually already employed and continue to work on their engineering degree and work and build their education simultaneously. We also want to improve dropout and stopout communications between partners and offer secondary pathways to students in these categories. We're also looking at implementing, or we actually have implemented reverse transfer agreements in order to allow students to claim their AS and the use for employability while still earning their bachelor's of science degree. And there are a number of things that we would like to do there to streamline that process. We're also looking to create learning communities that span both the two-year and four-year partners in order to facilitate student communication and also implement four-year and two-year student mentoring programs. And the last bullet here is to explore faculty exchange opportunities within partner schools. It would be nice to give community college faculty the opportunity to teach at the four-year schools and have four-year partner faculty teach at the community college schools. And I'll talk about that on the next slide as well. So next slide, please. So in terms of future growth and development, our goal is to partner with four-year institutions rather than to compete. And so as an example, if you think about the Fort Wayne Higher Education Consortium, by having common sense limits on the number of courses that students can cross-register for, you can really, the schools can dramatically benefit each other without needing to worry about ending up in a competitive situation where you have to be concerned about stealing students and competing rather than partnering. And our end goal is to partner and to support four-year partners by providing a diverse pipeline of underrepresented students. We think that we can utilize guaranteed enrollment strategies to streamline student matriculation. In the example of civil engineering articulation agreement and environmental and ecological engineering agreement, we actually have slots that are reserved. And in more recent agreements, we have guaranteed admission with some institutions. And we think that that is really a best practice because both institutions can weigh in and basically admit those students together and then have guaranteed admission once those students complete the work at the 2-year level. And again, the faculty exchange agreements, we think that this also has a lot of potential because Ivy Tech faculty could teach upper level courses at 4-year partner schools. That would be a really good way for them to continue their own professional development and to develop those relationships and support the 4-year partners. And it also, by allowing faculty to, 4-year faculty to teach at the community college at Ivy Tech, this can be something that's a very powerful part of NSF grants, broader impacts objectives. NSF and now the Department of Energy, DOE, they're really focused on these relationships between 4-year institutions and community colleges. And this could be a very tangible way of putting a very meaningful, broader impact program together where 4-year engineering faculty are able to teach and assist with course development in some cases and pilot things at the community college level. And in so doing, we can partner on NSF grants where applicable.
So as we wrap this up, I know we'll have some open times, non-recorded for some questions here, but I think what we hoped to do here was just to open eyes to what are some ways to strengthen the partnerships between community colleges and 4-year institutions that really are to that top line partnering rather than competing. We know that there are more good students, particularly diverse students that could be pulled into the engineering pipelines. We're happy to begin them, but the more we can work together with 4-year institutions as well as employer partners, the more we can pull and bring equity to the field of engineering. So we thank you for allowing us to present today.